In the heart of Greenwood, a small town where whispers of injustice lingered like shadows, the sun rose over a new day, casting a golden hue on the streets. The air was thick with anticipation as residents gathered at the park, a place that had witnessed both joy and sorrow. Today, it would be transformed into the Justice Trail, a symbol of resilience and hope. Danielle Carter, an FBI agent with a past marked by struggle, stood at the forefront of the crowd. Her heart raced as she looked around, taking in the faces of her neighbors, some familiar, others new. They had come together, united by a shared desire for change. The events of the past few weeks had shaken the very foundation of their community, and now they were ready to reclaim their narrative. As the mayor stepped up to the microphone, the crowd fell silent. Today, we honor those who have fought for justice and those who have suffered in silence, he began, his voice steady. This park will now be known as the Justice Trail, a reminder that we must stand together against injustice. Danielle felt a swell of pride as the mayor spoke. She had fought hard for this moment, enduring threats and challenges that had tested her resolve. The memory of Officer Brent Callahan's brutal actions still haunted her, but today was not about fear, it was about empowerment. The mayor gestured toward Danielle, inviting her to cut the ceremonial ribbon. As she stepped forward, she felt the weight of the community's hopes resting on her shoulders. With a swift motion, she sliced through the ribbon, and the crowd erupted in applause. Laughter and cheers filled the air, drowning out the echoes of the past. "Let's run," someone shouted, and the crowd surged forward, a wave of energy and determination. Danielle joined in, her feet pounding against the pavement, each stride a declaration of freedom. The path ahead was lined with trees, their branches swaying gently in the breeze, as if cheering them on as they ran. Danielle glanced back at the crowd, a tapestry of faces, young and old, black and white, united in their pursuit of justice. She felt a sense of belonging, a connection to something greater than herself. This was not just her fight, it was theirs. The trail wound through the park, leading them past the old oak trees that had stood witness to countless stories. Each step felt like a step toward healing, a step away from the shadows that had once loomed over Greenwood. The laughter of children echoed around her, a sound that filled her heart with hope. After the run, the community gathered for a picnic, sharing stories and laughter under the sun. Danielle found herself surrounded by friends and supporters, including Ethan Walsh, the young man who had captured the pivotal moments on his phone. His determination had sparked a movement, and now he stood beside her, a symbol of the change they had fought for. "Can you believe this?" Ethan said, his eyes shining with excitement. "We did it, Danielle. We really did it." Danielle smiled, feeling the warmth of his words. "This is just the beginning, Ethan. We have to keep pushing for change, for Marcus and for everyone who has suffered." As the day wore on, the atmosphere shifted from celebration to reflection. The community had come together to honor the past, but they also recognized the work that lay ahead. The fight for justice was far from over, and they were determined to ensure that the voices of the marginalized would never be silenced again. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Danielle stood at the edge of the park, watching the last rays of light dance across the water. She felt a sense of peace wash over her, a feeling that had eluded her for far too long. The scars of the past would always remain, but they no longer defined her. In the distance, she could hear the laughter of children playing, the sound of hope echoing through the air. Greenwood was changing, and she was proud to be a part of it. The Justice Trail was more than just a path, it was a promise that they would continue to fight for justice, for truth, and for each other. As she turned to leave, Danielle felt a renewed sense of purpose. The journey ahead would be challenging, but she was ready to face it head-on. With the support of her community, she knew they could overcome any obstacle. Together, they would ensure that justice would always prevail. And so, as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Danielle Carter walked away from the park, her heart full of hope and determination. The fight for justice was far from over, but she was ready to lead the charge, one step at a time. The tipping point. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. The Justice Trail became a focal point for community gatherings, rallies, and discussions about reform. Danielle found herself at the center of it all, speaking at events, sharing her story, and listening to others who had faced similar struggles. Each voice added to the chorus of change, creating a powerful momentum that was impossible to ignore. One evening, as Danielle prepared for a town hall meeting, she received a call from Ethan. "Danielle, you won't believe what I found," he said, excitement bubbling in his voice. "I've been digging into Callahan's past, and there's more to his story than we thought." Intrigued, Danielle listened as Ethan detailed his findings. There are multiple complaints against him, all buried under layers of bureaucracy. It seems he has a history of using excessive force, especially against people of color. "We need to expose this." Danielle's heart raced. "If we can prove a pattern of behavior, it could strengthen our case for reform. We need to gather evidence and testimonies from those who have been affected." With renewed determination, they set out to uncover the truth. They reached out to community members, gathering stories and evidence of Callahan's misconduct. Each account painted a clearer picture of a man who had abused his power, a man who had instilled fear rather than safety. As they compiled their findings, the community rallied behind them. Local activists joined the effort, organizing meetings and spreading the word. The movement gained traction, and soon, the media caught wind of the story. News outlets began to cover the growing calls for accountability, shining a light on the injustices that had long been ignored. The showdown. The day of the town hall meeting arrived, and the atmosphere was electric. Residents filled the room, their faces a mix of hope and apprehension. Danielle stood at the front, flanked by Ethan and Captain Jennings, ready to present their findings. As the mayor opened the meeting, he acknowledged the community's concerns. "We are here to listen, to learn, and to take action. The events of the past have shown us that we must do better." Danielle stepped forward, her voice steady. "We have gathered evidence of Officer Callahan's history of excessive force and racial discrimination. This is not just about one man, it's about a system that has allowed this behavior to persist. We demand accountability and reform." The room erupted in applause, but Callahan's supporters were quick to respond. A group of officers stood at the back, their expressions hardened. One of them stepped forward, challenging Danielle. "You're just trying to tear down a good officer. This is a smear campaign." Danielle met his gaze, unwavering. "This isn't about tearing anyone down. It's about building a community where everyone feels safe. We cannot ignore the truth any longer." The tension in the room escalated as voices rose. Supporters of both sides clashed, but Danielle remained focused. She presented the evidence, detailing each account of misconduct, each story of pain and fear. The crowd listened, some nodding in agreement, others visibly shaken. As the meeting continued, it became clear that the tide was turning. More residents began to share their experiences, their voices rising in solidarity. The narrative was shifting, and the community was ready to confront the uncomfortable truths that had long been buried. The aftermath in the weeks that followed, the momentum continued to build. The town council voted to initiate an independent investigation into Callahan's actions, a decision that sent shockwaves through Greenwood. The community had come together, demanding change, and they were not backing down. Danielle felt a sense of pride as she watched her neighbors unite. The Justice Trail had become a symbol of their collective strength, a reminder that they could no longer remain silent in the face of injustice. As the investigation unfolded, more stories emerged, revealing a pattern of abuse that had been hidden for far too long. Callahan's reign of terror was finally being exposed, and the community was ready to hold him accountable. Danielle knew that the fight was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, but she was determined to see it through. With the support of her community, she felt empowered to continue the battle for justice. A new dawn. Months later, as the sun rose over Greenwood, Danielle stood at the edge of the Justice Trail, reflecting on how far they had come. The park was alive with activity, families enjoying the space that had once been a site of fear. The community had transformed, and so had she. Danielle had become a leader, a voice for those who had been silenced. She had learned that true change required courage, resilience, and the willingness to stand up for what was right. The scars of the past would always remain, but they no longer defined her or her community. As she watched children play and families gather, Danielle felt a sense of hope wash over her. The fight for justice was ongoing, but they were no longer alone. Together, They had forged a path toward a brighter future, one where every voice mattered and every story was heard. With a smile, Danielle took a deep breath, ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead. The Justice Trail was not just a path, it was a testament to their strength, their unity, and their unwavering commitment to justice. And as long as they stood together, she knew they could overcome anything.